This video is being brought to you by Neatoware. Please visit us at neatoware.com.
That's neato!
Hello, my name is Paul, and it's my pleasure to walk you through some software for helping you to encode and decode messages that will generally be sent by email, perhaps some sort of instant message program, or your social media. The software EnDec is brought to you by Neatoware, and Neatoware is bringing software solutions for productivity and privacy. And our focus today will be on the EnDec software. Let's start by talking about the very first step that we see up in the upper left-hand corner of the software. I'll point to it with my mouse. It says Paste Clipboard to Input. Now the clipboard is something that is built into the Windows operating system, and it is a temporary place to hold different things when you're trying to move information from application to application. In this particular situation, we're dealing with text, because that's what EnDec deals with, is text of various types. So let's say for a second that we have a text document that has some information in it. We'll just say hello world. It could be whatever it is that you're trying to encrypt to send to someone else. And we want to move this information over at EnDec. We can always highlight that information, right click on it, and copy. And that information is now on the Windows clipboard. So if we click on the Paste Clipboard to Input, what's going to happen is we're going to take that information that we just put on the clipboard by highlighting something, right clicking, and copying that information. It's going to move it down to this input section down here, the white space beside the input section, and I'll demonstrate. Notice how our input section now says hello world. I've just highlighted it to draw your attention to it. So let's talk about step 2, where it says enter a 5-digit key. Now the 5-digit key can be between 1 and 5 digits long. It can be letters, or it can be numbers. It could simply be the letter A, or it could simply be the number 1. It could be the combination A, B, C, D, E. It could be the combination 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It could be the combination 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. It could be the combination of 5A, 4B, 2. Any combination of letters or numbers between 1 digits and 5 digits. So you can use 3-letter words like dog. You can use 3-letter words like cat. You can use words like Paris, because it's 5 digits. So that's what we're talking about when we talk about a key. Between 1 and 5 digits, alphanumeric characters. Now before we go to step 3, we need to make sure that we actually have a key entered in. So let's use the key Paris, P-A-R-I-S. That's going to be our key. Now step 3 is the word process. It's a button that we can click on to process. So once we have our key entered, which is Paris, and we click on the process button, what happens is the program, all in memory, never files written to the hard drive or anywhere else, it runs the input box information, which in this case is hello world, against the key, which in this case is Paris. And what will happen is it will come up with an output based on the input and the key. And it will show up down in the output box. So I'm going to go ahead and click on the process button, and we will see this in action. We will notice that the output box has turned green, letting us know that the process has completed. And now we have our first encrypted message for hello world, and that's what we see in the output box. We are done processing that message. Step 4 is where we get to where the information that's now in the output box is useful. So when we click on the button that says copy output to clipboard, what's going to happen is the information that's located down in this green area, the output box, is actually going to be copied back to the Windows clipboard for us to use in our instant message, in our social media, in our email, wherever. So I'm going to go ahead and click on step 4, and now the information has been copied to our clipboard. Now to demonstrate that, I'm just going to bring up a little text document here that we worked on a few minutes ago. And I'm just going to enter a couple of times, and then I'm going to paste, which is right click and paste that information into our text document. And this could be an email, it could be an instant message, it could be social media, wherever we paste that information. And that's what happens whenever we click on step 4, copy output to clipboard, is it loads the output message onto the Windows clipboard so that we can then use that output message in other programs. I would now like to draw our attention over to a button on the far right hand side called Paste, Process, Copy. If you'll notice, it's kind of a combination of steps 1, paste, steps 3, process, and steps 4, copy. And there's a reason for that, because it will actually do all of those steps for you. I'd like to reference our text document for a minute. Let's bear in mind that what is displayed right now is our original message. I'm going to highlight it to emphasize. And the encoded message that came out of EnDec once we ran that message against the word Paris, if we recall that. So let's kind of duplicate this process here again. I'm going to copy this information. So now what's on our clipboard is Hello World. Okay, I've put that back on the Windows clipboard by highlighting, and I think I did a Control-C, but you can right-click and copy if you'd like. And so now on the Windows clipboard is the phrase Hello World. And notice up here again is the message that we got out of EnDec a moment ago when we went through all of the steps of the process. Well, let's go take a look at EnDec for a moment. And what I'm going to do is clear the form, and we'll talk more about clear form in a little bit. I'm going to type in the word Paris in the key field, and instead of pasting the clipboard to input and processing and copying the output to clipboard, I'm going to hit this one button, the Paste, Process, Copy. Now we get a message here that says EnDec has modified the clipboard as requested. Now if we look over here, what we find in the input box is what was located on our Windows clipboard, and what we find in the output box is the exact same information we got a moment ago. And we'll go back over to our text document so that we can compare it. But now that information has automatically been put back into our clipboard for us so that we can go paste that into a document. But if you notice, this output information is exactly the same as this output information. It just did it in a one-step button process once we had the key inputted. So had we had that information in our clipboard, okay, and had a clear form and hit this button without the key, we would have gotten an error saying, sorry, please enter up to a 5-digit key using A to Z or 0 to 9 only. Let's talk about the two buttons that we have down here in the bottom right hand side. One says clear input and output. The other one says clear form. The clear input and output is strictly used to clear the input data and the output data. I will demonstrate. I've clicked on that button and you notice the input and the output is now clear. However, our key is still in place. So if we wanted to use that again, we could now use that key again. The clear form is used to clear all of the fields. I will put some information into the input box. I will click on the process button so that we have some both input and output, and I will demonstrate the clear form. When I click on clear form, it clears the key, it clears the input, and it clears the output. In essence, it resets it. If someone were to walk in the room, that might be a button you would use. If you're ready to start to send a message to somebody else and using a different key, that might be a button to use. So if you're going to reuse the key that you have in during that session of the program, you can use the clear input and output. If you're wanting to clear everything and start fresh, use the clear form. Now let's shift our focus to the input box. So far, really what we've talked about, though you have seen me demonstrate differently, what we've talked about is using step 1 to put information into the input box. But that need not be the way you use the input box. You could, if you would like to, put your 5-digit key in place, and once your key is in place, you could type whatever message you would like directly into the input box. Then process it. Use step 4 to copy the output to your clipboard if you'd like. So you can type directly into the input box. I would like to draw your attention to the information icons that are located throughout the program. If you'll notice when I point to this information icon, it brings up an information box about step 1, paste clipboard to input. If I point to this information icon, it brings up information about the process button. So if you need some gentle hints as you're going through the software while you're getting used to using it, feel free to reference those information icons and get yourself a little bit of help. Let's talk for just a moment about the shift keys if needed when deciphering. It's very important when you're deciphering a code that the key align exactly with the encoded message. So when we put our hello world up in the input box a little while ago and typed the word Paris in our key, then the H from hello and the P from Paris were run together to come up with the encryption. So what's very important, and I'm going to pull up our text box for just a moment, it would be very important that this character that's now highlighted be compared with that P whenever you're trying to decode it. Let's say for whatever reason I end up working with a message fragment, or maybe I've got an extra space in front of my message, or maybe I end up missing a character when I'm trying to copy the encrypted message. Any of these situations would cause it to where things did not align properly for the software and you would not be able to read the message. That's where that bottom section of shift keys come into play. So let's show the first example where I've actually picked up an extra space in front of the message. So I'm going to copy that over to my clipboard. I've highlighted it, I right clicked, I'm clicking on copy. I'm going to bring up the EnDec Software and I'm going to paste step 1, the clipboard information, into the input section. I'm going to put my key in, P-A-R-I-S, and I'm going to process it. Now what do you think is going to happen when I process this? Do you think it's going to come out right? No, it does not. The reason it didn't come out right is because, if you recall, when we look at our text document, I actually have an extra space here. It could be an extra space, it could be an extra 2 spaces, it could be an extra sentence, it could be an extra paragraph. What if I copied all of this information and tried to decipher it? What if I only had part of it to work with for whatever reason? With a 5-digit code, there are only 4 other variations of how that code can be used when deciphering. Each one of these buttons down here at the bottom, 1, 2, 3, and 4, will let you see those other variations. So if for some reason I get a code or a message fragment that I cannot read or understand, and I know I have the proper key, then probably I've copied information improperly, or the software that I was using to copy the information has been known to add characters to the beginning, but something didn't align. I'm going to start using these shift buttons to shift the key into position so that it will align with the code. Variation 1 did not work. Variation 2 did not work. Variation 3 did not work. Variation 4 allows me to read the message. Notice there's an extra character put in front of it because I pasted an extra character into the input box. So it allows me to make the message functional without having to go back over to my original document and pay such close attention to how I copy and paste. The same thing works if I'm working with a message fragment. Instead of having an extra space, what if I've only got part of a message? Clearing the input and output, I'm going to paste my clipboard into my input with step 1, and I'm going to process it. Notice it does not work. I'm using a message fragment. It does not align properly with the key. Variation 1 did not straighten it out to where I can read anything. Variation 2 straightened it out where I could read the information that I had. Remember, I was dealing with a message fragment. It has been my pleasure to walk you through using and offer you a little bit more information about the EnDec software that is brought to you by NeatoWare. Please visit NeatoWare.com to download the EnDec software today. NeatoWare, bringing software solutions for productivity and privacy. This video is being brought to you by NeatoWare. Please visit us at NeatoWare.com.
That's neato!